My name is Ronald E. Bowers. I'm a speaker on cruise lines. I've been doing it for 15 some years. Most like about 50, almost 60 different ships that I've given talks on. I started down in Australia, Japan, in the Middle East, a lot in the Mediterranean, and then of course in the Baltic, many times up there, the UK. But the cruise lines like me to do the transatlantic as well as trans-Pacific for the simple reason I have so many presentations. There's on those long cruises, there's so many days at sea, and they need somebody with new talks. And I have, as I say, 86 of them, and that works very well for the cruise lines. Now, I'm also an attorney. I've been an attorney for half a century in the criminal justice system. And I started in front of juries back in the 1960s, and I would stand up in front of the jury and I'd argue my case, and jurors would listen, and it all went well. But over time, I noticed that jurors needed more. They wanted visual presentations. And I started doing slideshows, PowerPoint, did a lot of charts, diagrams, maps, things that the jurors could connect with, see. And it worked very, very well. As a matter of fact, they asked me to write a book on the topic, How to Present Evidence to a Jury. And that book has been used in the United States for over 15 years. And as a matter of fact, internationally, the Japanese asked me and my wife to go to Tokyo to train their supreme prosecutors, how to present evidence to jurors, lay jurors. So I know something about how to take a topic and talk about it and try to keep it interesting. So when I started doing cruise presentations, I did it graphically with a lot of photographs and charts, and it worked very, very well. So when I do a talk in front of, let's say, 400 or 1,000 passengers, it's like a super jury to me. What worked with the juries? It works very well for passengers on cruise lines. There's a way of presenting things to make it interesting as well as entertaining. Part of that's to do combining visuals with audio, but there's a rhythm to it. There's a flow that you have to have. And I have a concept where like every 12 seconds there'll be something new on the screen. What happens to speakers is the audience that they have is in a dark auditorium, and if something isn't happening, they doze off. So that's why I always have something on the screen that is changing every so often, and that keeps the passengers alert and watching. So the next thing I'm sure you're wondering is, okay, what type of topics do you have? Well, as I say, I worked in the Los Angeles County court system, and Los Angeles includes Hollywood. And as you know, Hollywood has actors, actresses, musicians, the rich and famous. It's something fascinating about celebrities that people want to know more about, you know. And I've prosecuted and I've handled a lot of those cases involving celebrities as defendants or as victims. And I've taken those cases and the stories and I've put them together in presentations. And let me give you some examples of that. One that I started out with, a presentation that I find very useful, is called the Hollywood Mob. And it starts out talking about Bugsy Siegel and Lucky Luciano. Bugsy was sent out to Hollywood to organize the labor unions, the studios, and the gambling, and he got it to work very, very well. And then Lucky Luciano said, hey, you know, we hear that Las Vegas, gambling is legal there. Go up there and see if you can get your foot in the door for the mob. And he did. So Bugsy's up there and he builds a casino, hotel. And the name of it is flamingo. Why flamingo? Well, that was Bugsy's girlfriend was Virginia Hill, and she had flaming red hair and long legs. She looked like a flamingo. And that's how the name flamingo came about, and it's still called that today. Well, the casino worked well. However, there were some people from the mob back in New York who thought they should be making more profit on it. And they thought maybe Bugsy was skimming some of the profit off of it and keeping it for himself. So things were getting a little tense. Bugsy leaves Las Vegas to come over to Beverly Hills to spend some time there at Virginia Hill, his girlfriend's house. And one evening, he's sitting there reading the newspaper on the sofa, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, he's shot. A high-powered rifle shot him in the head twice, killing him instantly right there. Well, it was obviously a mob hit, but that was the end of Bugsy Siegel. Well, not his legend. His legend lives on, and the movies have been made about him. Now, his lieutenant was Mickey Cohen. Now, Mickey Cohen wasn't as smooth as Bugsy, and there was a lot of violence going on in Los Angeles between the various rival gangs and mobs. So the law enforcement never could get to Mickey Cohen until they got him on income tax fraud, and he was sent to Alcatraz. And he stayed there in Alcatraz. Now, his right-hand man was Johnny Stompanato. Now, Johnny Stompanato, he spent a lot of time at the studios, and he met a lot of the actresses there. And he met Lana Turner, and he took a liking to Lana Turner. And so he started dating her and started living with her. So that carried on for some time, and I think it was a Sunday evening. He's over there at Lana's house up in the bedroom, and they're kind of arguing. There's something going on, and her daughter, who is 15, is downstairs, hears it. She takes a kitchen knife, goes upstairs, and the next thing that we know, when the police arrive, Johnny Stompanato has been stabbed to death right there, lying dead on Lana Turner's floor in her bedroom. Well, that was the end of the old-time mob in Hollywood. Anyway, that gives you a little insight on the Hollywood mob, one of my presentations. And another one that I talk about is the Menendez brothers, one I did a lot of work on. And people don't quite understand all the facts in it because they were kind of given a distorted view. But what's interesting about it, when I do the presentation, I talk about Lyle and Eric Menendez and their parents, Jose and Kitty. As a family, it was an upper, did very well, and they lived in Beverly Hills. Things were very, very good. However, the boys didn't do well in school, and they didn't like to work. All they wanted to do was play tennis and go out with the girls. So their parents said, look, you guys have got to straighten out, or we're going to cut you out of our will. And now that had a lot of impact on the brothers, and they realized, well, whoops, we've got to do something here. And they thought, well, how do we kill our parents? How do we get rid of them? Right then and there was a mini-series on TV called the Billionaires Boys Club about Joe Hunt, who was a young man who had an investment firm, the Billionaire Boys Club, and how they killed a number of people. So the brothers paid attention to that TV series, and they went down to San Diego, and they bought the shotguns down there. They brought them up, and then at one evening, it was most like around 10 o'clock, they snuck in the back of the house, and their parents had dozed off on the sofa in the family room. And they go in there and with their shotguns, and they start shooting at their father, shooting him numerous times. And the mother, she gets up off the sofa, and they start shooting her with the shotguns. and they run out of ammunition. So the two brothers go out to their car, they get more shotgun shells, come back in, and then they just blow their mother to smithereens. So that's what happened. But when the police arrive, they tell the police they don't know what happened, and it must have been somebody from the mob who was out to get their father. So the police didn't know what to believe. The boys were not suspects, and it went on and on for month after month. And then the police noticed that the brothers were spending a lot of money. As a matter of fact, they spent $1 million in 6 months of their parents' money. And they're kind of wondering, and they asked to talk to them if they knew anything more about who might have been interested in killing their parents. So they were able to talk to Eric, and he didn't know how to answer their questions. It was kind of, well, am I saying the right thing? But that was the end of that talk by the police. But 2 days later, Eric is very concerned. Did he say the wrong thing? So he got together with his psychiatrist, went over to his office and talked to him. And all of a sudden, Eric says, "We did it. We killed our parents." And the psychiatrist, whoa, what's going on here? He was surprised. So Lyle comes over to the psychiatrist's office and tells the psychiatrist, if you say anything to anybody, we're going to kill you. So now the psychiatrist was concerned about his safety, but the brothers still wanted to have therapy sessions with him. So once a week they would come in. So what the psychiatrist did to protect himself, he had his girlfriend stay in the room right behind where she could overhear what was being stated. And if something was going wrong, she could get on the phone and call the police. So, week after week went by, and she could overhear what was being said, and it was being tape recorded. And for whatever reason, we never learned why, the psychiatrist broke up with his girlfriend. And she didn't like that. And she was bitter. And after about a month, she went to the police and she said, do you want to know who killed Menendez's parents? And she said, it was the brothers. And there's tape recordings about them confessing to it. So now the police have it, get the search warrants, get those tapes, and that was how we were able to put together a case on. Anyway, I just give you kind of a snippets as to what I talk about, and there's a lot of detail that I go into in the presentation. Now another one I did a lot of work on, almost 10 years later, was the Phil Spector case. That was a little bit different, and that one, Phil Spector was well known for being a music producer, and he had a lot of big hits. He had created what was called the wall of sound, and it was a new sound, it was a backroom sound, and it was great. And all music after that took on that wall of sound. Now he had the different groups, the Crystals, the Ronettes, the Righteous Brothers, even the Beatles. So he worked with all those groups, made a lot of money. But many years later, his fame kind of, faded, but he still wanted to go out and socialize. And one day he called up an old girlfriend from high school and said, hey, let's go to dinner in Beverly Hills. He had his limo and himself pick up his girlfriend. They went to a very fine restaurant, had dinner, and afterwards did some bar hopping and ended up at the House of Blue on the Sunset Strip. There he goes in there and he sees Wanda Clarkson. She's the hostess to the VIP lounge. And she, he notices that she's tall, she's blonde. She had been the Barbarian Queen, the star of that in 2 of the sequels. So he's impressed. And he says, what, come over to my house for a drink. Come over to my house. And she didn't want to have anything to do with it. But eventually, she said, okay, for one drink. and they go over to his castle on the hill, and they go in there. Now, they had two different agendas as to, he wanted to have some sex with her, and she was tired. The barbarian queen, she had worked all day and she wanted to go home. So she goes out to the foyer, sits down in a chair, just waits, for the chauffeur to pick her up. What Spectre does, he goes to the dresser drawer there, pulls the drawer out, and he takes out a revolver. And the next thing we know, she is shot through the mouth, severing her spinal cord. She dies instantly, right there and then. Wow, what is that all about? Well, it became quite a trial. He's claiming she was there and committed suicide in his house. On the other hand, the evidence pointed to him shooting her in the mouth because she wouldn't, cooperate with him and have sex with him. So it was a long trial, and part of it, the jury came out to the house, the castle, for a view of the crime scene. And I had to set it up, and here you can see these pictures where I'm putting posters in there showing the jury what it looked like on the day of the shooting. So a lot of work went into the case. Anyway, I'm just saying that when I give this presentation, I go into a lot of detail of what went on behind the scenes, and the passengers are fascinated by it. So they learn something they didn't know about. Anyway, that gives you an idea of some of the Hollywood talks that I give. As I say, I've got 86 of them, as well as the talks I have a podcast that I do every week. It's on YouTube, and it's called True Crime Files of Los Angeles. And it's a mini presentation, just like I do on the cruise, a shorter version of it. So if you want more information on the type of topics and how I present it, go on YouTube. You can see many, I don't know, 50 or so of them. The other thing, if you want to know more about, what have I done? I've written over 43 true crime books. And it goes in a lot of detail, more detail than I talk about in my presentations. But some people, they like to hear from somebody who has written on the subject. So if you want somebody who has been doing a lot in the subject, as a matter of fact, I do a lot of TV documentaries for Netflix and Discovery on true crime, on the subject matters that I talk about on the cruises. Well, hopefully this has given you some insight as to who I am, Ronald E. Bowers. So if you need an experienced cruise speaker with interesting topics, exciting presentations, contact me. I'd be more than happy to join you on one of your ships. Please let me know. Thank you.